Welcome to the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Podcast, episode 47.
Switching from one country, coming to another completely different country with different culture, language, experiences, and so forth is also not an easy journey. So finding a way to get through these other challenges was just a natural way to move forward and survive. So essentially, just like many other people act in challenging situation, your survival skills kick in.
My name is Alina Warwick, and today we have Alina Trigub on the show. When Alina grew up in the former Soviet Union as a Jewish, she was a target to the anti-Semitism groups. Her mom knew that they needed to get out for mere safety reasons, so they came to the United States when Alina was in her 20s. Alina's journey started as a side gig only because she wanted to research the real estate syndication for her own benefits. She was drawn into that market as she dug deeper and started to invest more and more. She did that for several years on her own when she realized that not a lot of people knew about these types of investments, and she wanted to bridge the gap with her experience in accounting and the real estate syndication investments to open up her business. She knew that she needed to create her own company to manage investments for people who want to diversify their portfolios, mainly serving accredited investors, and that's how SAMO Financials was born. So let's dive in and hear all about her journey. Okay, Alina, thank you so much for joining me on the Immigrant Entrepreneurs Podcast. You are the very first guest on my show that has my first name, and you spell it the same way that I do. So I was super excited, and I'm really excited to talk about all your journey. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alina. It's a pleasure to be on your podcast. I've never been interviewed by anyone who has the same first name as I am. So excited as well.
All right. So let's talk about your immigrant journey. Tell us where you're from and when did you come to the United States?
Sure. Thank you, Alina. I came to the States almost 30 years ago. And when I came here, it used to be called Soviet Union or Union of Independent Republics, rather, at the time. After later on, when the company split up, I guess I would say that I came from Ukraine, Odessa, Ukraine. But as I said, it's been almost 30 years.
Okay. And what was it like growing up in the Soviet Union?
It was very different from living in the States. Well, it was a typical experience of growing up in a socialist country, everything pro-communist with the prerequisites of joining, the Young Communist Party. If you want to get into college, always talking about Lenin and Stalin and all the communist propaganda stuff.
Okay. And so was it difficult growing up in the communist era, or what were some of the challenges that you guys had to go through?
So in my case in particular, I am Jewish and all of my family is Jewish. So for us, the main challenge was rising anti-Semitism. And this was actually the main reason why my family and I, that consists of my mom and I, have immigrated here almost 30 years ago. I've experienced anti-Semitism even back in school, from middle school to high school. I had challenges getting into college, again, because of, is in Soviet Union, used to be called nationality, the sixth line in the passport. So growing up, other than the rising anti-Semitism, everything else was fine, right? I still had friends that were non-Jewish and so forth, and so did my mom. But the overall, pressure of rising anti-Semitism, and even in the later years before we immigrated, some threats of potential pogroms, which not many people are familiar with, but essentially pogrom is when some group of people decides to eliminate another group of people. So that was not a pleasant experience to have, even though those pogroms have never happened, supposedly. police in town was able to prevent them from happening. But even the mere fact that there were expectations of pogrom and someone was going to draw a swastika on our door where my mom and I lived did not leave a warm and fuzzy feeling in me. And I still remember this to this day.
Wow, that's pretty challenging because you are always watching your back and you're always looking to see what's next or when is this all going to stop. So, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And how old were you when you guys came to United States?
Well, that for anyone who is good with math, that will let them calculate my age. But let's just say I was in the age to enter college.
Okay. And did you guys come to connect with friends or family? Did you have anyone here in the United States?
Yeah, we had some friends and we had some family members living in the States. Yeah, we still do have both, sure.
Okay, got it. And then what was it like transitioning to finding a car or a job for your mom or the living situation? What was all that like?
That was a typical immigrant experience. It wasn't easy for sure. And, even though we had friends and we had some family here, but my mom and I used to not rely on anyone. So our friends luckily have helped us to find an apartment where we live. And they gave us some pointers on finding jobs and applying for colleges. And even with that information, it was still tough because both of us had a language barrier. In my case, it was more psychological than anything else because I was learning English while back in Soviet Union preparing to immigrate. But psychologically, it was hard to overcome the barrier of speaking with an accent or just speaking in a language that was not a native tongue to me. But nevertheless, after a couple months here, my mom and I both decided that we both wanted to get an American education. So we both ended up going to colleges, even though different colleges at the same time, and had a bunch of odd jobs from babysitting to looking after elderly to cleaning houses and whatnot at the time because we needed to support ourselves while going through that getting an undergraduate degree journey. So it was not an easy journey, but switching from one country, coming to another completely different country with different culture, language, experiences, and so forth is also not an easy journey. So finding a way to get through these other challenges was just a natural way to move forward and survive. So essentially, just like many other people act in challenging situation, your survival skills kick in and you
Yeah.
do no matter what it takes to survive because you want to survive and you want to thrive. At the end of the day, you want to thrive. And that's, I think, one of the main reasons why a lot of successful entrepreneurs in general are immigrants or maybe first generations, just because even if they didn't immigrate themselves, they were able to observe a lot of survival skills in their parents.
Yeah, and a lot of immigrants I see they end up opening their businesses because out of survival, like you said, there is no other choice but to open up a business and but to be creative and to expand their horizons and to think outside the box, and then they end up creating such amazing companies out of survival. So yeah, you're totally right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Alina, before you tell our listeners about your company, tell me a little bit about the path you took. And I want to know if you try to go into any other fields before starting your business.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. I actually had over 20 years of professional W-2 career before I started my business. And mainly when we just immigrated here, I was looking for a career that would help me pay the bills. And many people ironically think that if you're good with numbers, you would be good with accounting. That was my stereotypical assumption as well. So I figured I love numbers, I love math, I should be good with accounting. While I was pretty decent with accounting itself, after taking 9 accounting classes, I realized that it was definitely not the type of work I wanted to do. And even though I gave it a try by going into public and then private accounting, both jobs have confirmed my suspicions that I didn't really enjoy being an accountant or tax accountant, rather, because those were the roles that I took. So I ended up switching my careers and moving into the world of information technology, where I was able to leverage my accounting and business skills and becoming a technologist, not a developer, but someone who was able to understand the language of developers and the language of the business and connect the two worlds. So essentially, I spent 20 years in information technology, being a liaison, if you will, between the two worlds, the world of business and the world of technology, in many different roles, and progressed through many different career advancement and multiple companies while doing that.
Yeah. So, what was your major in college? Was it IT?
No, my undergrad was in accounting and my MBA was in finance and management.
Oh, got it. Got it. Okay. So you spent 20 years in the corporate world in different companies. And at what point in time did you decide to branch out and start SAMO Financial?
Great question. It's been 3 years since I started SAMO Financial. That was 3 years ago.
Okay. Okay. And was there a certain story or was there a certain like feeling or what was that thing that pulled you away from a job and pulled you into becoming an entrepreneur?
Great question. So yeah, there is definitely a story, but it starts 7 to 8 years earlier than SAMO Financial was born. So while working in information technology, my career and my husband's career was progressing, and along with that, we're progressing our tax brackets. And as a former tax accountant, even though I never liked the field, I was still thinking about the taxes, or rather finding ways to minimize the impacts of the taxes and alternative minimum tax that kept impacting us every single year. So while thinking about that and doing some research, real estate kept coming up on a number of occasions. And so I finally, about 8 years ago, I decided to take action and started researching real estate investing as a field in general. And while doing that research, I came across such thing as real estate syndication, which in a nutshell, I'll explain for your listeners. It's when a group of people decides to pool the funds together and jointly buy large commercial asset, maybe apartment complex, maybe self-storage, or something that costs a lot more than a single family house. And in that venture, there are typically two subgroups. So one subgroup is called general partners. These are the people that do all the work within this syndication. And another subgroup is limited partners or passive investors. These are the folks that invest their funds in the venture and allow general partners to do all the work. So I became limited partner at that time when I found the syndication, and I started investing in them actively on a regular basis. And after doing that for a number of years and speaking with my friends, colleagues, co-workers, I realized that almost no one have ever heard of syndications. And I also realized the tremendous benefits that syndications were offering in terms of creating passive stream of income, in terms of the tax benefits offered by becoming a real estate investor. And then there was a social impact component as well, because whenever we were buying apartment complexes, it was always about cleaning them up, maybe finding a place that potentially didn't have, let's say, a playground or a pet park, and finding a way to build that playground or a pet park in the communities where people have pets, or maybe they wanted to have a family and didn't feel like that there was no playground. The place would be good for family to reside and so forth. So the social impact component was also a huge factor in my decision making. So after realizing that all these benefits preserved and offered through syndications were not available through the regular market and people were not familiar with it, I decided to bridge that gap in any way I can and essentially help other people diversify their portfolio outside of Wall Street and invest in syndications and essentially follow my lead, follow the steps that I have taken over the last few years. And that's how SAMO Financial was born, with that goal in mind.
Got it. Got it. Okay. And so as you were getting deeper and deeper into these investments that you were doing on your own, you realized that, hey, a lot of people don't know about this process. Let me open up my company and get this out streamlined into the world.
Yeah, exactly.
And so tell us a little bit more about SAMO Financial and who you guys serve, who are your main clients, and then a little bit more about what other things that you guys do.
Sure. So SAMO Financial has multiple channels. One of the channels is attracting so-called accredited investors. So essentially, it's people that are qualified to invest in these syndications. And I use the word qualified cautiously because syndications are securities regulated, SEC regulated businesses, Security and Exchange Commission, and hence SEC have put specific definitions around who and when can invest in various types of investments. So we specifically serve people that are accredited investors, and to give you a quick definition, it's for folks that if they're single, they have been making 200,000 in the last 2 years and reasonably believe they can continue making 200,000 this year. If they're married, then they would have to be making 300,000 in the last couple of years and should reasonably believe they will continue making 300,000 this year. The alternative to be qualified as accredited investor is to have a net worth of at least $1 million, where your home is excluded from that net worth. So that net worth typically includes things like brokerage accounts, IRA accounts, 401k account, maybe some investment properties, whatever you have. So you can think of it as all of your assets less your liabilities is essentially your net worth. And these are the people that are typically professionals anywhere in, and again, I'm estimating age from 35 to 65 that are busy in their careers, or business owners that are too busy with their business ventures and would like to invest in real estate, but either do not have the bandwidth or do not have the interest to deal with tenants and toilets. So we serve to them as a replacement to that, because they would have to deal with myself and my team instead of tenants and toilets. And I promise not to call anyone at 2 o'clock in the morning at that time. So yeah, we help people and allow them to partner with us on our projects. Projects could be, as I mentioned, it could be an apartment complex. It could be storage. We also invest in assisted living space. We invest in mobile home parks. We've also added some new strategies that have been pandemic driven as well. And we are also starting to work on building our own funds where, if people don't have the time to look for a number of assets to diversify their portfolio, we will be able to offer them fund that already has a bouquet of various asset classes in different markets, and will essentially allow them to diversify their portfolio in one shot.
What an amazing, amazing journey. And so, is there a minimum investment that someone would have to come in with?
Yes, the minimum quality capital ranges, I would say, anywhere from 50,000 to 100,000 in order to invest with us.
Okay. And then can they pick and choose which real estate investments that they wanted to put in their money? Or do you guys have different packages and, like you mentioned, assisted living and apartments and COVID related items? What is your strategy that you provide to the clients, or do they pick and choose?
They can absolutely pick and choose. We do not force anyone into anything. What we do offer is continued education and continued support. But everyone is absolutely entitled to choose as to which investment they would want to go in and partner with us on. So that's totally up to client to decide what to invest in.
Oh, that's fabulous. And so, how long did it take your business to start seeing some real traction in the beginning stages?
I want to say that it took almost a year, but in my case, it was at the beginning, it was a side gig. So I started my business while still working full time. And I was doing that for a while until mid last year. I essentially went into business full time because my full time position was eliminated. My initial plan was to work for a couple years longer and then leave, but my plans were changed and I had to essentially follow along and take this opportunity to go into the business full time. So I've seen it escalated a lot faster now that I'm in it full time.
And did you have to do any marketing while you were doing your side hustle to get the word out there? Or was it word of mouth?
At the beginning, it was word of mouth. And in terms of marketing, the terms may be interchangeable, but I prefer to call it thought leadership platform. So what I was doing is building my thought leadership platform. I was doing that by essentially creating my website and I started publishing my articles on my website and on various social media platforms. And ever since the video trend had picked up, I started publishing videos as well, started getting interviews. I was invited to a number of conferences live in person when that used to be the case, and now virtual conferences. And then I've been quoted in a number of publications. I've been interviewed by a number of publications. So all of that have essentially contributed towards my success and towards building and making my thought leadership platform stronger.
Okay. And when you say videos, do you mean YouTube or on your social media pages?
YouTube and also LinkedIn, and I think some of them went to Facebook as well. But I also host my own real estate meetup. I used to have two in-person meetups at two different locations in New Jersey and in the city. But then ever since we went virtual, I combined them into one virtual meetup. So I now do host virtual events for real estate investors. And the cool part about it now is that people from anywhere in the world can join us.
Yeah.
We've had quite a few investors from West Coast join us because it starts at 7 p.m. And I guess for you guys, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's still quite convenient for folks to join and participate with us. So I like that part a lot.
Yeah, COVID did open up the door for virtual meetings, which is amazing, and virtual platforms that actually have different people from all over the world in one meeting. So that, yeah, it's totally great. So, Alina, did you have to raise any capital to start your business?
No, it was all self-funded.
Okay. So you kind of just had your side hustle when you were doing your full-time job, and then when you did full-time, did you open a physical office, or was this all ran through your website virtually?
For this type of business, I don't really need an office. People prefer to meet, or I mean, in the past, we used to meet outside. It was typically meeting in the restaurants, cafes, or just walking outside, or in the conferences, or in the I mean, in Manhattan, it's very common for folks to meet in the bars. So I used to meet a ton of folks in the bars, and while they're pretty loud on the weekends, I used to go during the week and it was relatively quiet and easy to talk. So that was like a common theme meeting in a bar Wednesday or a Thursday, some weird day during the week.
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about mentors. Did you have any mentors that helped you out to start your business or maybe at different stages of your business entrepreneur career?
Absolutely. I've had mentors, and a couple of them were indirect mentors. I don't think they would call themselves mentors, but I consider them close friends and mentors, people that have helped me to escalate and grow my business, people that helped me to run through the challenges. Because just like any other business, I've had challenges and I would not be able to be where I'm at today without the support of these mentors, friends, partners, people that I've met along the way. And some of them were in real estate space, and some of them were just entrepreneurs that were open to sharing their experiences and sharing how they overcame their own roadblocks, because some roadblocks are not physical, some of them are mental, and it's a matter of talking to someone else who has gone through that experience and learning from their experience so that you can overcome your own.
Got it. And where did you find these mentors? Did you get yourself plugged into any entrepreneur organizations or do any meetups?
Yeah, essentially, I started networking heavily online and offline and connecting with a lot of people. And when I say networking, I mean, for me, a lot of it was about providing value to other people. So, whatever I learned up to that point or whatever I knew up to that point, I would start sharing with other people. And one of the key components of my knowledge has remained to this day in the tax field because of my education and my prior tax expertise. So at some point, I realized that I know and I understand a lot more than many other people, just because the tax code is so complex and not easy to follow. So I started to share what I know and how to interpret and how to understand certain things with other people, and questions and notes of appreciation started trickling in essentially. But that's how I built my network, by providing value to other people and talking to other folks and meeting and contributing in any way I can.
Mm.
The main thing is to be a giver, not a taker. If you're a taker, I mean, maybe a couple of times you'll be able to get what you need, but at the end of the day, people will turn away from you. So the idea is to be a giver and always give, and continue giving people what you know and how you know. And even if you don't know, if you want to help someone out, then find another person that can help them out. Go out of your way to help other people, and you'll see that they'll come back to you. I'm a complete believer of helping other people in any way I can, in whatever capacity I can, because again, all of the good deeds are always remembered, and you just don't know when you may or may not need help. And by helping other people, you're essentially creating a network of people that want to be friends, that want to stay in your network. And that's the foundation of establishing and building strong relationships with other people.
Yes, so powerful. So, Alina, how do you reinvest in yourself to keep up to date with your market or niche?
uh, through a number of things, by reading books, taking classes, going to conferences, and meeting some amazing individuals like yourself.
So, you keep on reinvesting by reading books and continuously learning because the learning process does not stop, right?
Absolutely. And again, to reinforce the point, the learning doesn't have to end on your field of interest. For instance, in my case, while my primary field is commercial real estate syndications, I am always learning and interested to hear about other fields within real estate, even outside of real estate, around building wealth, changing your mindset, and removing obstacles. And one of these examples of continuously reinvesting in yourself is, or was in my case, going to Tony Robbins' event about 3 years ago, when I learned from someone that he was coming to New Jersey in 2018. I didn't think of it much, but then I kept hearing from every other person around me, and those were real estate investors, mind you, that they were saying that they are going to that event. I decided to give it a try and joined one of my friends. And I was so thrilled afterwards that I joined them and went to that event. It was such a mind changing and mind blowing experience. It was completely unbelievable, from walking on fire to seeing a 60-plus-year-old guy stay on stage for 12 plus hours without any food or drink or any sort of break. That was incredible. And just hearing Tony speak and hearing his coaches speak, it was definitely life-changing experience. So I'm really grateful that I was able to go, and it was all pre-COVID when everything was still open. So that was definitely a life-changing experience for me.
Yeah, thank you for reminding us because you're totally right. Sometimes we can get so focused on whatever market we're in and driven to keep up to date with the next, big thing. But in reality, it's a whole host of things that keeps entrepreneurs going. Like you said, mindset is so, so powerful. So yeah, thank you so much for reminding us. That's absolutely, absolutely true. So let's talk about successes. Are there any successes that you would like to outline from your immigrant entrepreneur journey?
I think each step towards building one's wealth for themselves and their families is a success. And in my case, those little steps, obtaining undergraduate degree, then obtaining MBA degree, getting married, having kids, progressing in my career, starting business, meeting amazing people along the way. I would call all of that successes because all of the people essentially that I met along the way that either became my friends or business partners or people that surround me in my community that I can reach out to if I have questions, let's say, that are medicine related or questions that are politics related. Those are the folks in your network that contribute towards you growing and towards you expanding your mindset. And I consider all of those steps and experiences a successes in my case, and being essential part of my journey.
Yeah, and immigrating to this country and going through the citizenship process is a success as well.
Of course, absolutely.
Yeah, because I know it's a really brutal and long process for everyone.
Exactly.
So, Alina, what does the American dream mean to you?
Yes, in my case, it means being free from anti-Semitism, and I don't mean in a way that I will never see it. I'm sure anti-Semitism exists in America and all the other countries, but I don't want to be waking up every day and thinking when I'm walking outside, do I need to watch my back, or will I be afraid to go into university or be at a certain place and think that, oh, someone's gonna call me names or something like that. It That experience that I had in my early years in Soviet Union, and the reasoning behind deciding to immigrate, it made a huge impression on me because I was young at the time, and essentially, my mom and I realized that there was no future for us at that point, and the main goal for us was to immigrate and to free up from that heavy weight of anti-Semitism. And I feel like that part has been achieved, and I'm happy to call myself an American, and I'm grateful for everything this country has offered to me, to my husband, to my family in general. And I think I have all I need as a part of that American dream in terms of being able to raise kids and live in a free country.
Love it. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. Is giving back either volunteering time or giving back to the community something that is part of your business values?
Absolutely. That has been a strong part of my personal and professional journey. I volunteer on an annual basis. I used to do it in person, and my kids were also participating with me, and we're continuing to do what we can virtually nowadays. And we're hoping that some of the volunteering, or hopefully all of the volunteering, will return to its original form, where it was either collecting food for the food pantries, or in my case, I've done a number of presentations in chartered schools in the areas for underprivileged kids, talking to them about going to college, choosing a career, and just helping them get acclimated with the fact that they can go to college. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, that after graduating school, they don't have to immediately go find a job. They can think of applying and going to colleges to obtain their degrees and finding a rewarding career afterwards. So for me, in general, my favorite type of volunteering is working with kids in any capacity, whether it's educating them or helping they fed or doing the secret Santa and sending the gifts that we collect to the schools where the kids may not have a chance to get Christmas gifts.
Wow, you're giving back in so many ways. That's awesome. Do you think entrepreneurship allowed you to give back a little bit more than you would have when you had your corporate career?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because while building the company brand and talking about what my company stands for, I always, when there is a chance, talk about volunteering and giving back. And this way, people hear more about what we are about and how we are giving back. And potentially, that may be one of the reasons why people want to join us and partner with us because of our way to give back to the communities and volunteer different places.
Yeah, and I always talk about how entrepreneurs are building communities and building economies, and you're just shown proof how you are out there doing it and giving back through the food bank and through mentoring kids. I mean, you're pouring into the next generation, which is absolutely so amazing, and especially in this day and age, to be able to mentor and to pour in to the next generation of kids that are growing up in such a world of social media and such a world of, I mean, I can just go on in tangents, but the point is, thank you so much for doing it out there and just giving back in so many different ways. So it's so powerful to see that.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So, Alina, what are some things you would advise the next aspiring immigrant that wants to start their own business?
I think working on their mindset should be step number one because, as I mentioned earlier, no matter what, there will be challenges and obstacles on the way. And to be able to overcome them, one needs to have an open mind. And I also mean by that is just preparing and thinking of your why. And when I say why, I'm actually referring to the book by Simon Sinek. Essentially, what Simon talks about in his book is start with your why. Decide why are you doing what you're doing. If you know that big reason why you're doing what you're doing, and if that reason is big and strong enough, it will help you to overcome your obstacles. So for me, it's all about building and preserving wealth for my family and for next generations. I want to create for them what I didn't have when we immigrated here. And so that keeps me going and that helps me to overcome the obstacles that I have on my way. And like I said, while it's great to be able to learn from other people, examples and experiences, you will still experience your own challenges on the way. So to be able to overcome and get through these experiences and essentially dust off and go is hard. But if you have your why in front of you and maybe even create your own vision board, that will help you to remember that why at all times, will help you get through those challenges experiences. And by the way, the book is called Start With Why.
Great. Thank you so much. What amazing, powerful advice you just poured into all of us. And I appreciate you coming on the show. And what a journey to share. And I am super excited to share it with the world. So I thank you, Alina, for coming on the Immigrant Entrepreneurs podcast.
Absolutely, Alina. It's my pleasure. And thank you for inviting me to be interviewed on your show.
Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If there are any links that were mentioned in this episode, make sure to check them out on my website under this episode to find all the links conveniently located in the show notes. I just wanted to ask for a quick favor if you could please leave a review wherever you're at listening to this podcast. Also, if you're an immigrant entrepreneur and would love to be on my podcast, please email me and we'll get connected. I'll see you guys all next time for another exciting and impactful episode. Take care.